Hello, Internet. Welcome to episode 381 of the Assorted Calibers podcast. The second bit of podcast is a little bit for everyone. I'm Weer'd, and tonight I am joined. She is forever the greatest hostess in the entire universe, and she smells nice. Erin Paulette. How you doing, Erin?
Red Door by Elizabeth Arden.
Yes, it is really nice, actually. I do really enjoy it. I say it every time. Every time we're hanging out and you get dolled up, I'm like, God, you smell nice, Erin.
Thank you. I try to be classy.
Especially since, again, I am someone who has suffered my entire life with asthma. And, there was a moment that I don't remember it well enough to remember that if I was out with my parents to a play or if we're out at the symphony. But I had gone to a classy cultural outing. And I sat behind an elderly lady who was doused in perfume. And I think we ended up having to leave early. I think my mom and I went out into the lobby and went outside and used my inhaler a few times to see if I could get a little bit better. But I was dying in there because of that perfume. But there was a lot of it. So as a general rule, I do not like perfume. So when I say, yeah, it's nice, that's a high compliment.
Well, thank you. And I do try not to overuse it because I know some people are sensitive about it. I think it's interesting that you had asthma, and so of course you took up smoking later.
I mean, isn't that ironic? I mean, I was also a marine biologist who suffered from seasickness and a mouse breeder who's allergic to mice. I'm a walking contradiction.
I had a friend who in the 90s worked for Covance Labs in Virginia, and she was also in the mouse pens. And she was also deathly allergic. Well, when I say deathly allergic, I don't mean like life endangering, but very, very miserable at that job because of all the allergies. So,
well, I took a class, a couple actually, at the Jackson Laboratories in Bar Harbor, Maine, and
Bar Harbor,
Bar Harbor, and they talked about how, essentially, on a long enough timeline, everybody that works there eventually is going to develop a mouse allergy. It's just a thing of the enough exposure to it's specifically mouse urine. Humans just develop an allergic reaction to it, an immune response. And I could use that as a transition to say that we had an incident at our house where I cornered at least one of the mice that we have, and if you're subscribed to the Patreon and the blooper reels, you'll hear the full story of this. But the mouse was managed to dodge capture in just the thing's a genius. There's nobody's this lucky. It got away. It got away marvelously, but I learned a couple of the spots where it was hiding that we scared it out of. We had wondered if it hid under one of the radiators, and clearly there was not a hole somewhere for it to duck into. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to spook it out of there. And it was behind a refrigerator. Clearly, since we were able to spook it out of there, there's not like a hole for it to duck into. So I've found a few more locations that may be egress spots for the mouse, and doubled up traps in places and stuffed holes with steel wool and such activity. And so hopefully the mouse is either trapped somewhere away from us now or going through, but also it meant that I spent a big portion of the day crawling around in dirty areas filled with mouse poop and just immediately I just start wheezing. So, but hopefully maybe this time is the time that he'll get them. He says after having mice in my house for, 4 months now? Ugh.
I mean, at this point, and no offense to you, but I'm rooting for the mouse.
Yeah, so's David.
I mean, just a mouse that has lasted this long despite your best efforts.
Yeah.
Just no, it's unfair. Just charge the mouse rent.
And I mean,
Clearly,
that's
this is
the
a
thing.
genetic anomaly.
Yeah, at one point my wife said, like, maybe we should hire an exterminator. And I said, what would they do? and that's the true statement, is that we could, like, if the exterminator would come over and we would give him $200 and the mouse would be dead or excluded from our house somehow, that would be money well spent. But, like, I mean, this is New England. Like, most of the houses here are over 100 years old, some of them 200 years old. Like, there are houses here where mice are going to get into all the darn time. And, there's just too many gaps and holes and imperfections and things that there's no exterminator company that's going to say, yes, give us money and the mice will be gone. Like, even if they do a good job, there's no telling that new ones can't come in. And so we haven't bothered with that because it's one of those, like, what are they going to do? I've tried just about everything. So
fumigate the house, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, even that, like, that's not as easy as you may think. And I've never heard of people like bombing rodents. And then there's the question of, like, or what does that do to, like, if it's killing the mice, what does that do with everything else that's in the house, like appliances?
I don't know.
Yeah.
But, I mean, what's your other option? The mouse wins?
I mean, the option now that we've got is what we had right there is it's something that I've suspected from the very beginning, that it's going to end up like I am literally going to kill this thing with my bare hands, trap schmaps. And essentially I'm restricting with steel wool and glue traps and things. It's essentially just a game of aerial denial, where it's just, no, you can't move here. No, you can't move here. And every time I see you moving in an area, I close that off. And hopefully eventually it will we'll get to a point where either the mouse is trapped somewhere and either escapes outside out of desperation or dies from lack of food and water, and good riddance. We've wanted to avoid a mouse dying in our house as much as we could, but now at this point in time, smelling a dead mouse would actually be the smell of victory.
Have you considered hiring a piper?
Oh, in the first grade, I played the Pied Piper of Hamelin in a school production.
And?
No, just it was my taste of fame. I think the teacher knew that I was the one that could memorize the lines the best.
Really, with your ADHD?
I'm really good at memorizing lines.
Okay.
So how's your week been, Aaron?
It's been
okay.
Yeah, just nothing new to report. Just trying to get my life back in order and avoid the awful that is social media.
Yeah, it gets like that, doesn't it?
Yeah. Good luck with the pivot.
Yeah, well, I mean, honestly speaking, I knew there was some downer news stories. I was hoping we could have some uplifting ones. And actually, this one first, when I read the headline, I went, oh, this is interesting. This might be some good news, and realized, well, it's not good news. And so, I don't know. Do you want to take it, or should I? You like taking the Virgin Islands stuff, but we'll go either way.
I do.
I mean,
news to me.
You've covered a few of the Virgin Island ones, but
that's because I have a brother who lives there. But all right. So yeah, the U.S. Virgin Islands has some of the worst gun laws in the United States. I don't know if I would say it's the worst, but they're really bad, and we've talked about this before. And so there's two things going on. And that is, and I don't know if we talked about this last week or not. Sounds vaguely familiar, but the Department of Justice is filing a lawsuit against the U.S. Virgin Islands to compel them to update the territory's gun laws. And like most gun prohibition states, not only are they fighting it, but they are doing that very peculiar version of nuh-uh. But this one is taking a stance that is very odd. And so the Attorney General for the U.S. Virgin Islands boldly insists that the USVI are in full compliance with the Second Amendment and that it's the federal government that's violating the right to keep and bear arms, basically because of what ICE is doing. And they specifically mention the killing of Alex Preddy while exercising his First Amendment right to protest, and how the government said it was justified because he had a gun, a right guaranteed by the Second Amendment, etc., etc. And so it closes by stating that the U.S. government can't come to the court with unclean hands. And so while most of the gun prohibition states have been nuh-uh, this particular tactic seems to be no, you are.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. Okay, I'm almost positive it's going to lose. That argument does not seem to be a winning argument because, and it goes into unclean hands theory, and it's a lot of boring legalese, but essentially, SCOTUS has rejected this line of argument before. It's unlikely to allow it to happen again. And so at this point, it's just, watch for the cringe factor, see how badly they get slapped down. I have a lot of unkind things to say about our current administration, and we're actually going to talk about that next. But I will say that the DOJ is largely trying to advance gun rights within the country, and so I started to say I wish them luck, but in this particular case, I don't think they're going to need it. I think the Virgin Islands are going to get their hands slapped very badly.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair statement, and I just think the most significant part of this is the fact that they're directly citing essentially anti-gun statements made by the Trump administration, specifically pointing out that saying that Alex Preddy shouldn't have been armed at the protest, and just the mere fact that he was carrying a gun was the major factor in his death, and it certainly contributed to it. But as I said, I've been to protests while armed, and it hasn't been a problem because I wasn't there to interact with police, confront police. Certainly, if I was doing these these ICE auditing observer position sort of thing, I personally wouldn't go armed because all the stuff that they're doing is definitely gaining the attention of the officers and leading them to get closer into custody. And the last thing you want is to be carrying a gun while a police officer is wanting to put you in cuffs. That's how you get shot by your own gun by accident, as we've covered in the show in the past. And so, but that ties into the next story, which is again showing this Trump administration. They're not terrible on guns, but they're also not great on guns.
Mm-hmm.
And this is from statements from is she the Attorney General?
No, that's Pam Bondi. Oh, do you mean of DC?
Yeah, I think she is. But Jeanine Pirro is her name, and she essentially was talking about crime, and I think specifically trying to to fluff Trump on his use of the National Guard to clean up the crime in DC, which was very successful, whether you agree with the tactic or not. And but essentially saying that that she is going to go hard on people carrying guns in the District of Columbia, and saying, like, even if you have a permit from another state, don't come into DC with your gun, and which is again like very contradictory, because earlier on she had said that she's not going to be filing cases on people carrying long guns and high capacity magazine, enforcing the high capacity magazine ban, because she believes that those are both unconstitutional. And sounds like she's kind of walking it back, but it's also clear that she's not a gun people, and so this sort of stuff just muddies the water.
So I wish our legal correspondent Oddball was here and he could answer this question. So Jeanine Pirro is the United States Attorney for the District of Columbia, which is not the same as the Attorney General of the District of Columbia.
It could be the fact that the district is a district and not a state, so it may not be capable of having an attorney general.
But see, that is where you are wrong, my friend, because the Attorney General for the District of Columbia is Brian Schwalb, or Schwalb, depending on how German he pronounces his name. So, I mean, you go to Wikipedia, and it says Attorney General for the District of Columbia, not to be confused with United States Attorney for the District of Columbia. Yeah.
Oh, it might be by where they come from. One might be appointed by the voters of the district, and this, I mean, Pirro is appointed by Trump. She's a Trump person, and so that may be the difference, is that she's appointed by the executive branch.
Yeah.
But
I mean, we could dig into this, but I think that this is a segment for Oddball.
Yes. Calling him out.
He's going to drop at least one F-bomb on me for that.
Yeah, it'll be fun. And I'll laugh. So either way, that's going on with DC. We'll see.
Well, I mean, we aren't completely done here.
Okay.
Unless I just tuned you out. But first of all, there's some very fun commentary by our friend Costas Moros, who's now with the SAF. And he says the Trump administration needs to put a muzzle on certain people because they are doing real damage to perceptions, even as the administration is making very real progress for Second Amendment rights in a ton of ways. And here's the money quote: "Do they want gun rights-focused voters to show up in November or not?" And I mean, a lot of that statement is rhetorical, because it's not like pro-gun owners are going to vote for gun prohibitionists, but they might just choose not to bother. And that's something that I've noticed for nearly every administration during my lifetime. They come in strong, they may even control the legislature, and then the honeymoon ends, and then in the midterms, the legislature swings back to the opposition party. And so what Moros and others are saying is, look, you really need to get your house in order. You need to stop people from helping and actually help, because otherwise they won't show up, and the Republicans will very likely take significant losses in the midterms.
Mm-hmm.
So now just from my own personal standpoint, I like gridlock, because I think the government is too big and too controlling, and if they're busy fighting each other, they aren't infringing on our rights. But that's me, and I understand a lot of people will be opposed to that.
Well, that's the tough part, is the gridlock also goes both ways, just the same way as, government expedience goes both ways, is the fact that it'll cause, our enemies will be able to pass bad laws much easier and much quicker, going through, but it also means that our actions to repeal them will be stymied.
Fair enough.
But it's a true statement, and I was listening to Cam and Steve Gutowski were on the Reload podcast that was released the morning of this recording, the 9th, and Cam was mentioning the fact that he doesn't see Second Amendment people defecting over to Democrats, as a general rule, but he can see certain rhetoric and all that convincing them to stay home, just as Costas was mentioning, and that should be a real concern. And
you're waiting for me?
No, I'm just gonna switch gears. Here is the I've just figured out the best way to say, and now on to stuff that doesn't directly affect us, but we need to keep an eye on it, only because it's not like the playbook is any different. And this is talking about the Canada's Prime Minister. It says he was on a podcast. I cannot find which podcast this is for the life of me. If anybody can, go ahead. I'd love to see if there's enough audio for me to pull out for an audio fisc. So they are starting up their voluntary gun buyback, as they like to call it. But they are noting that as we all know, yes, it's voluntary. But no, if you don't comply, that doesn't mean you're going to get away with owning your restricted firearms. And in fact,
so just to put a fine point on this, what they're saying is that the buyback is voluntary, but you still must comply with the law. So basically, you can return your guns for some money, which isn't guaranteed, or you can get rid of them for no money at all.
Mm-hmm. This is very similar to my mother got called into her supervisor's office, and they offered her an early retirement package, and she says, "Well, I'm actually happy to still work. I want to work a few more years. I was planning to work to my regular retirement age." And then they informed her, "Well, just so you know, you are one of the most senior nurses in the hospital, so therefore you are have the highest pay level, and we're going to be doing some budgetary cuts that are going to include layoffs." So it was, you could take this early retirement package, or we could just lay you off. So my mom retired, but it was a very similar vibe. So yeah, I mean, obviously the key, just talking about just how rough it is up in Canada and how grateful we need to be that we have a Second Amendment and we need to protect it, because absolutely the gun prohibitionists, if they could get rid of the Second Amendment, they absolutely would. It's just too difficult for them at this point. But that doesn't mean that things may change. But also, this is something that we see all the time with the voluntary gun buybacks and no one's coming for your guns and all sorts of other rhetoric when, in fact, they are. And then the last essentially major gun news thing is that the Virginia House has passed an assault weapons ban. And this is one of those like really tough stories, because it's one of those like, Virginia's a purple state, and so when you're seeing gun control thriving or making progress in a state like this, it's a tough pill to swallow. But it is it's an assault weapons ban. I did a little bit of browsing about the bill, and it is a one feature test assault weapons ban. It has a grandfather clause in it, but I believe it's restricting the sale of the guns. So it's not like the 94 assault weapons ban, where gun companies were just cranking them out and getting them through, and people were buying and selling them, and it was commanding a premium. But In fact, it's it's one of those. It's yes, you can keep the gun that you have, but no, if you die or want to get rid of it, no, that's the end of it. So very very similar to what Canada's doing right now with their restricted firearms. Is there's ones that you can still own and you can still keep, but you can never sell it. It can never be owned by anybody but you, including your next of kin. Mm-hmm. It also, one thing that really actually got me is one of the features is threaded barrels and muzzle devices, and that includes pistols. And I'm pretty sure Virginia allows suppressors, and so effectively suppressors are legal, but any gun that you can attach a suppressor to is going to be illegal.
So I want to point out that this particular bill makes it a Class 1 misdemeanor. It's not a felony, but a misdemeanor to import, sell, manufacture, purchase, or transfer assault firearms as defined in the bill. But if you own them, or they were manufactured before July 1st, they could continue to be possessed. But future transfers are prohibited. But here's the thing. A Class 1 misdemeanor is basically a diet felony, because a Class 1 means you can be in jail for up to 12 months, and there are a lot of laws that prohibit you from doing things if you are jailed for a year. And I'm not remembering what those are, but I'm pretty sure that they have to do with gun ownership. And so, and you can jump in anytime, Weer'd, to correct me on this.
No, I think you're correct, and I'm the only quibble that I might have is it might be that these penalties are up to 1 year, and that might be that if you serve exactly 365 days in jail, that might not be quite. But if you got some bad behavior in there and got a few extra, a little bit of extra time, then that might actually kick you over the line. But furthermore, just to completely unmuddy the waters, you think, oh, I'll just, similar to how the NFA was, I'll treat the I'll treat this as essentially a tax on it, and I'll just buy and sell all the magazines and guns that I want, and if the cops catch me doing it, I'll pay a little extra money, and it's just a misdemeanor, it's not a felony, and be done with it. There is additional penalties in most states, and I assume Virginia is another one, for a habitual offender. So if they're catching you, buying or bringing in from Pennsylvania, 30-round AR mags for the fourth or fifth time, then you might be looking at many years in prison for that, or jail instead of just a 1 year, and then you're going to lose your gun rights.
Mm-hmm. So really what I'm getting at is, don't let the fact that it's a misdemeanor think it's just like a slap on the wrist. No, it could be really bad for you. Jail time at all is bad, but I guess I'm looking at it from the perspective of, when I hear the word misdemeanor, I think, oh, it's not that bad. But no, a Class 1 can be bad. That's why I called it a diet felony.
I have certainly, when I believe I was in Texas at the time, and we were driving around, and I asked somebody, so we have a duty, Texas is a duty to inform state. And I'm like, is it a felony or is it a misdemeanor? Because again, one of my concerns is a cop unfamiliar with guns decides that they want to disarm me to be more comfortable in a traffic stop, and they end up discharging my firearm while they're taking it out of the holster or trying to get my holster off. And that's not something that I want. And you know what? A fine seems like a fair price to pay to try to mitigate that risk. Again, that's your choice versus any other choice, but this is definitely something that could get much more serious, especially since it's not like any of us buy one gun or one magazine and we're good.
I mean, I'm told some people do that, but they're weirdos.
Yeah, they are strange people. And again, this is just it's heading towards the Senate. It's not quite law yet. So the key factor is that this is just a call to arms to all of our listeners in Virginia. You're probably already aware of it by the time you've heard this podcast, but get out there, start letting your especially your state senators know that this is an absolutely awful law. It's really bad, and and as actually it says in the article, it's already, like, before it even becomes law, it's already under scrutiny for Second Amendment violations, because there are multiple assault and magazine capacity court challenges for them being unconstitutional. And spoiler alert, they are unconstitutional. Just the question is, will the court agree with what everything says and all the previous precedents? Which I hope so.
All right, so this last segment is from a dash cam, and I believe it's from Chile.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to point out to people that when you're watching this, it says 07/02/2026, and I want to point out that most of the world uses day than month than year, not us who uses month and day than year. So this happened, according to the dash cam, February 7th, which was 2 days ago, and it shows, there are at least two people in a car, because they're talking, a man and a woman, and they are on an on-ramp getting onto some sort of highway. Here in the States, we would call it the interstate. And as they are... Hang on, Tilly's in my lap. And so as they are accelerating to highway speed, the car in front of them puts on its brakes, and at least two people come out of the car. The passenger goes out of the passenger seat, and it looks like the driver goes around the hood, and they are pointing a gun, at least one gun that I saw. The other person's probably armed, but pointing a gun at the people in the car of the dash cam. And I would expect they're trying to rob them, but who knows, there might be a kidnapping. And what I really appreciate about this is we keep saying, remember that you're in a car. A car can be a weapon as well as a getaway device, and this driver knows this, and he used it as both. And so when he saw the doors fly open, he accelerated, and there is a very satisfying thump as one of the perps is hit by the car and goes flying off their right bumper, and it looks like, over the guardrail. And I sincerely hope he was injured very badly. I didn't see anything about the car hitting the open doors of the other car. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. But if you listen to the audio, you can tell that the car is not driving normally. There's a lot of rattling going on, which you would expect if you, at the very least, had hit somebody. But the people in whose car we are, they are completely safe. They accelerate onto the highway. It's in Spanish. I don't speak Spanish. But it sounds very much like, what the heck was that? Are you okay? Wow, I can't believe that happened, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so just to pound this nail in, remember, if you are inside a car, use it to get away. If someone is pointing a gun at you, then you may need to run them over, but do not stop, because if someone is pointing a gun at you, well, okay, there may be some for police, but I mean, if a non-uniformed person is pointing a gun at you, they do not have good things in mind for you. Get away.
Yeah, I agree. And furthermore, again, the I say this specifically on the podcast because had this person started reached for a gun, had they been, concealed carrying or had a gun in the console or all that, legal or otherwise, I don't know what the laws are in Argentina, but
Chile.
But, had they started what's that?
I said Chile, not Argentina.
No, it is Chile, correct. And the pardon to Chileans and Argentinians for the confusion. I probably did the similar of confusing the United States with Canada. But you have the to pull out a gun, index it across the steering wheel, all the various tactics that I've seen various gun trainers do, and all that is not going to get you in a better place than this guy clipping one of the guys with a bumper and getting up onto the highway at a high speed and getting away. So I just say that as for things people talk about, doing the mental preparation for various things, teach yourself, like if I'm walking with bags in my hand, I need to remember if something was to go down, these bags are very precious to me right now. That's why I'm carrying them. But the first thing I need to do is dump them out onto the ground so that I can have both hands available. And the same thing goes when you're in a car, yes, you have a gun. Yes, you could use it, but also you can hit the gas and just go fast.
All right. So according to the AI summary here, so with Chile's gun laws, carrying firearms in public is illegal without a very specific carry permit, which is extremely rare. Fewer than 200 such permits exist nationwide. Firearms must be stored at a registered address and cannot be transported outside that location without authorization. So, assuming the summary is correct, then this person would not have been allowed to carry a gun for self-defense legally, and if they had pulled a gun, then they wouldn't have released the dash cam footage. Mm-hmm. So yeah, they really didn't have any advice, didn't have any other options except to do what they did, and it worked flawlessly. So good for them.
I concur.
So it took him some searching, but Xander has finally found himself a holster for his CZ.
Welcome to Independent Thoughts with yours truly, Xander Opal. At last, I have a holster that fits my CZ P-09 pistol. I am very grateful for my local gun store, their efforts, and patience after a month and several iterations of will it fit. Given the bulk of my gun, most generic holsters don't fit. The guy finally found one by Fobus, a paddle holster that fits CZ P07 duty and P09 pistols. This is set up as an open carry, right hand, and it settles nicely over my belt and requires effort to remove. My pistol snaps into the holster nicely and also requires specific effort to draw, but not so much as to be a problem in an emergency. There is an adjustment screw to set how hard it grips on the trigger guard. I found it comfortable to wear on my right hip, and there's plenty of room between it and my multi-tool sheath to dig around in my right pocket. I moved the nice sheath knife Aaron gifted me to my left side for balance so I don't walk in circles. A mag pouch on that side of my belt would also not go amiss. As a quick test for comfort, I installed a barrel blocker in my pistol, loaded up my full EDC and other pocket debris, then fired up some VR games, such as Superhot. The holster stayed in place, and it did not give me reason to notice it aside from the weight on my belt. I've also been wearing it around the house this evening, including sitting down in my computer chair, and it does not catch on armrests or anything like that, making it reasonable for carrying openly in a car or tractor. That bit about the weight is the biggest thing about carrying, and is more to do with the mass of the gun, even unloaded, than the holster. The holster's job is to try to make that gun reasonably comfortable. I may need to look into a belt made with firearms carrying in mind, not to mention as I record this I am rather overweight. Body shape is a big consideration, pun intended, on effective carry. While I am literally taking steps to help with that, as it is easier for folks with a more standard height to weight ratio to find clothing solutions that are securely worn, I am also glad I am a literal belt and suspenders person. The fact that the holster is clip-on makes it very convenient for my current primary use case. When I get to the place I need to for putting an animal down, I can clip the holster on, holster my gun, then have my hands free as I make my way through the barn. When done with that business, I can put everything away without having to undo my belt as well. Simplified, easier administrative handling is a huge safety thing. And also, I take effort to minimize administrative handling. As time goes on, and I expand my gun collection, I will no doubt consider more ways to carry, especially as I acquire more concealable firearms. I'm also pondering whether manufacturers are rolling out can-ready options, just as they have options for sights and lights. Have fun, be safe. I hope I gave you something to think about.
I gotta say, I have shot Xander's CZ, and it's a nice shooter. It is a very, very nice shooting gun, and overall, like, I'm a huge fan of CZ. I think they make absolutely spectacular firearms, and I'm really surprised they don't have bigger industry support, because we were all kind of helping them look for holsters, and like so many places don't make holsters for the various CZ pistols, but also that's most places now. There's just, it's the molds and all that are the expensive part. So also Xander talked about having a little bit of belly and different modes of carry, and it's one of those. I've seen a couple of videos on various hacks and things you can do to appendix carry if you've got a little bit of a gut going on. But overall, as a general rule, that's not the best option for your, for people to carry. If there's a spare tire going on, probably better to carry off the strong side hip rather than the appendix. And there's all sorts of other body type stuffs, like if you're an extremely busty woman, it may not be ergonomically as easy to draw from a shoulder holster like I do. We'll get different body types, and you gotta pick the holster that works for both your body type and the clothing that you wear. And my last observation is that newer shooters need to remember that, yes, administrative handling is a very, very bad thing. Handling a loaded gun when you're not on a range is not something you want to do, and something you want to minimize as much as possible, because that's how accidents happen. And so, yeah, no, I agree with Xander on considerations to minimal administrative handling.
So I'm going to plug 3 products here. Xander has a Fobus, and that's fine. I really want to promote, because I own one and I like it, and I suggested it to him. It's called the Kenai chest holster, or Kenai. I don't know how it's pronounced. It's probably named after that place in Alaska. And so it is literally a holster for a pistol, and it's on your chest. And I really like it. Let me tell you how much I like it. So I had one made for my Glock 26, and then when I stopped carrying my Glock and started carrying my Ruger Max 9, I bought another Kydex shell for my Max 9. That's how much I like them. And what's interesting about them is that they are modular. Once you buy the straps and get them set up for the length that you need, you can just buy the different shells and plug them in. And that's exactly what I did. And that reduces the cost somewhat. And so if you are looking for a versatile open carry solution, I would highly recommend you check them out. They are what I would consider to be on the expensive side, but y'all know how cheap I am. But, they're like about $160 some, but definitely worth the money. And so I would really recommend that you check them out. They have the palette seal of approval.
Well, that's awesome. You can throw that in the show notes.
They're already there.
Beautiful.
So Xander mentioned the knife that I gave him, and I bought him a Morakniv Craftline. And I've been saying for like over a decade now that Moras are some of the best kept secrets of the knife world, and I don't know why they're a secret. I don't know why they're not better known. But this one is a 3.6-inch blade, high carbon steel with a plastic sheath, and it costs like $14. And you can get them in a variety of colors. I got bright red for him so that if he dropped it, he'd be able to see it on the farm.
Mm-hmm.
And with Moras, you can just abuse the heck out of them because, again, they're like $13, $15. But also, they last for a long, long time. And so if you abuse them, they'll last for a long time. If you take good care of them, they'll last even longer. I have many, many Moras, and you should own at least one. They are great. Finally, I asked Xander what he used for hearing protection, because he did mention having to put an animal down, and you don't want to do that without some sort of ear pro. And he mentioned he had some type of earplug, reusable earplug that he used. I don't think I got a brand name from him. Yeah, his response was either Workforce or such. Well, I recommend Sonic Defenders. They don't work for Xander, but I really like them. They are very, very comfortable. They aren't expensive. I got mine for about like $15.50. You can get them with Prime shipping. And here's something interesting. They have a little plug in the middle that you can flip open so that if you want to hear some, but not everything, like you're working in a noisy environment, but you still need to be able to hear people that are talking to you, you can have that open. Or if it's just way too loud, you can seal that plug up. And I have taken them shooting. They work well for being on a firing range. So go ahead, buy them, put them with your everyday carry like I do. On the off chance you need to use your firearm and you have time to protect your ears, pop them in. So those are my 3 product recommendations.
I'll say, yeah, I when I got my first pair of Sonic Defenders, which I think just actually the SureFire booth at NRAM one year just gave them to me. I've since bought multiple pairs since then, as I've worn them out over the years. They're absolutely my favorite ear protection, and that's over like, good battery powered ear protection. And these ones, so I noticed they had the little baffle plug, and so I went into my indoor range when there was one person shooting a pistol, and with those out, and stepped out, heard the few shots, immediately stepped back, outside into the hallway where the sound was protection, and said, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna have to put those plugs in." But as I realized, as I was putting the plugs in, my ears weren't ringing, so it was unpleasantly loud with the plugs out, but it clearly was, it took a lot of the sting out of it. That obviously standing in an indoor range with no ear protection with someone shooting a pistol, you're going to be doing hearing damage, and that was not the instance. So I've also said like that might be a great ideal for somebody who's hunting or something like that, where you still need to have quite a bit of your hearing sensation, but and you're willing to sacrifice a little bit on both comfort and the risk of hearing damage, but you can kind of split the difference with it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, nothing's going to take the place of a good amplified earmuff, but they perform very well for the price, and you can just stick them in a pocket. And you can't do that with amplified earmuffs.
It's true.
So, I mean, they aren't my first choice at a shooting range, but they're definitely a good thing to have. Or if, like, you're at a range where someone is shooting a really high-powered rifle and you feel the need to double up, you can put those in and then put the earmuff over it. That also works really well. That's what I did when we went to the Gundies and the tank fired. It was just like, yeah, the rifle's already pretty loud. That tank's going to be even louder. I'm just going to double up. And I was happy.
Though the big issue with the tank was the, yes, your ears may be plugged, but guess what? Your bones can still be compressed. Well, so I think it's time for us to switch to the final segment of the evening. And we've been full up on segments for a while. But as you may have noticed, when I interview someone for the show, I like to do like a little bit of a wild card, akin to a human interest story from the old timey broadcast news. And so when I was talking with James Fodor of the Science of Everything podcast, I wanted to talk to him about the culture shock of moving from Australia to Pennsylvania. I am pleased to welcome back to the Assorted Calibers podcast, James Fodor of the Science of Everything podcast. How you doing, James?
I am well. Thanks for having me back again.
So anybody listening to you, they can clearly hear that your accent. So what part of Texas are you from?
No, well, I don't know. I don't think there are many people in Texas who speak like me. So I'm from Melbourne in Australia. So it's down south in Australia.
Yeah, and so, but we are talking. You're on East Coast time, so I just wanted to know. So yeah, what is the story with how does a man from I'm going to butcher it, how to say it, Melbourne, Australia, make his way up to the United States?
Yes, well, so I'm relatively recently here. As I said, I'm from Melbourne, and that's where I grew up. I completed my PhD in computational neuroscience at the University of Melbourne just middle of this year. And so I've been looking for postdoc opportunities, and there are quite a few labs in the US that do research that's connected to mine. So I research language and cognition. And so I was lucky enough to get an opportunity at at Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh. So I've been here for about 2 months now, and enjoying the work. It's been a bit of a shift, but it's been good.
Yeah, so I mean, so you're relatively recent. I wasn't sure how long you'd been here, but
only a couple of months.
That's gotta be wild to pack up everything and move you. I assume you don't have any family over here.
No, I don't.
Oh yeah, so yeah, what does that entail? Did you end up having to ship a bunch of your stuff, or did you just say, you know what, I'm starting fresh here in America?
No. Well, I'm not moving here permanently, but so a lot of my stuff, mostly my books, is back with my family in Melbourne. But so I didn't take very much with me, and that's an annoying process, having to like rebuy everything, or not everything, but like furniture and household goods and other things. Especially as well, not having a car here is difficult. Although Amazon certainly comes in handy; they're getting things delivered. But
beware of the car. We put the pedals on the wrong side here.
Well, I mean, that's part of it, right? The getting used to the traffic being on the other side of the road is surprisingly difficult. So because the way you look, like which direction you look first and focus on when crossing the road is very deeply ingrained, and so you can know consciously that it's the other way. But I'm still training myself to make sure that I focus on people being on the right side of the road, and making sure that, especially riding a bike, that one or two times I've just been like, I'm drifting off to the left, and like, no, got to make sure that I'm on the right side of the road. Things like that are sort of surprisingly ingrained. Another big one, of course, is the use of the metric system. So we use the metric system in Australia. Getting used to the American system is well, I don't think it's something I'll ever fully adapt to be honest. Still, I find it annoying, but it's just one of the things you have to adapt to.
And so you said you've only been here 2 months.
Yeah.
So you have
just over 2 months.
You haven't had the joy of a Pittsburgh winter.
Well, it did snow just early this week, actually, which was not my first experience with snow, but my first experience with like being in snow on the streets and things like that. I think I need better shoes, but it's like it doesn't snow in Australia really at all, apart from up in some of the mountains, but certainly not in the city. So it's definitely a different experience.
As a Mainer, I would highly recommend you peruse the catalog of LL Bean.
Of what, sorry?
LL Bean. It's a company out of Freeport, Maine. They make wonderful outdoor gear, and their boots are excellent.
Oh, I'll look into that. Thanks for the recommendation.
So I'm not going to be able to hear that. I had a roommate when I was living in Portland from the Seattle area, and she happened to move down during one of the snowier winters that we had, and she was very, very excited to see snow of that level for the first time, and then very quickly the novelty of it wore off.
Yes, well, I think it snowed on Monday this week, and I think it's really quite beautiful when it first when it first falls and is fresh. But it hasn't really melted. I mean, it's cleared off the road and things, obviously, but I think it loses its sheen, sort of literally and figuratively, as it progressively gets sort of messier and dirtier and more speckled, and it just sort of sits around. It's a weird experience. It's just not something I'm used to. I guess a lot of Americans, they're used to that in winter, but not so in Australia. So
how long are you planning on staying in the States?
Unclear at this point. So at least 1 year, maybe 2, something like that. Depends on how long my contract is extended for and things like that.
And then are the plans back to Australia? I know you probably anything can change.
Yeah, well, that is the long-term plan. So, all of my family is there. My fiance is actually there as well. So I'm going back to be married in January.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. So, she might come and stay with me for a bit, but the long-term plan is definitely to go back to Australia. But I mean, I'm happy to be here for a time. It's a bit difficult for me to say what some of the biggest differences are, partly because I mostly just around the university, and universities are quite international in most countries. So in fact, in my lab, I think we only have one American. Everyone else is from some other country. And that's pretty similar in Australia. But a lot of the differences are sort of more subtle things, at least that I've noticed. And that can be challenging as well, because they're not always things that you expect or anticipate. I
mean, we certainly don't have nearly the number of poisonous animals that you have.
Well, that's something that a lot of Americans mention when I mention that I'm from Australia. And it's true, we do have quite a lot of dangerous animals in Australia, snakes and spiders and that. Although, particularly where I'm from, that's not as much of an issue. I mean, generally, those are more of a problem in more northern parts of the country and in more rural parts of the country. My fiance actually is from far north Queensland, which is up sort of tropical area in the north of the country. And they certainly had a lot of experiences with snakes and spiders and other nasties getting in. But that's less of an issue in urban areas and then further south as well, thankfully, because I'm not a fan of such things.
You just explained why I'm a little bit colored myself. My next door neighbor's from Perth, so yeah, she talks a lot about the brown recluse spiders.
Yeah. I mean, Australia's a very big place, so it very much does depend where you're from.
That's actually, you know what? That is an interesting statement, because of course, Melbourne and Perth are like essentially directly opposite each other on the continent, and it's my understanding it's like pretty much impossible to get from say Melbourne to Perth without flying. Is that correct?
You can drive, but that does involve traveling across pretty much completely empty desert. Like there's way stations and things, but for at least a day. I don't know how long it would take to drive from Melbourne to Perth. At least several days, and I would certainly not recommend it. Some people do. There's like the Nutherball Highway, I think it's called, which is the main stretch between South Australia and Western Australia, where Perth is, which is just hundreds of kilometers through nothing. So certainly not an experience that I would care to do. I'm not a big fan of driving long distances. I've never even been to Perth myself. It's quite a long way away from Melbourne, and it's just different in Australia because we have quite big capital cities, which are then surrounded mostly by a lot of nothing, and so you can't just like drive from city to city and then go across the country. I mean, you can, but it takes a very long time, and there's often not very much in between, especially when you're going east to west.
Oh, that's I was just absolutely floored by that. I heard someone talking about the challenge of crossing Australia by car and or truck really, and it blew my mind because of course if I wanted to, I could probably just hop in my car and drive to Los Angeles right now And, without, depending on how little planning I could do would be how uncomfortable the trip would be, but you could just do it. It
would be extremely dangerous to do in Australia, going from one side to the other,
Exactly.
especially east to west. You would need to plan that.
Yeah, that's the difference is, it's one of those like, oh, I forgot to pack a toothbrush. You're going to pass 1,000 drugstores, in there. And, there's the worst you'll get is there's, several places along the way that'll say, it'll be, 50 or 100 miles before the next gas station. So fill up now. And, but that's running out of gas is the number one issue versus getting stranded in, some of the largest deserts of the world. All right. Well, as a food nerd, I will say, is there one piece of food item that like the moment you go back to Australia, that's going to be the first thing you're going to grab because you can't get it here or we make it terrible here?
Well, I'm not a particular food nerd myself, but one thing that I did get sent from home was Vegemite.
Okay.
I don't know if you're familiar with that.
I am familiar, but why don't you explain it? Because I think most people are not.
Sure. So Vegemite is a spread. So you eat it on bread or toast, and it's there's a few similar British products like Marmite, for example, but I don't really think there's anything similar in the US. No. So Vegemite is a distinctively Australian product. And it has a very, it's made from concentrated yeast extract, and it sounds very unappetizing. It also looks very unappetizing. It's basically just like a black paste. And to most people who haven't grown up with it, it tastes very unappetizing as well. Although partly that's because Americans don't know how to eat it properly. I remember bringing some years ago when I visited the US with visiting some American friends, and I brought some Vegemite for them to try. I remember one of them picks up a spoon and is just about to like eat it out of the jar like you would peanut butter. And you very much do not eat concentrated yeast extract with a spoon out of the jar. The correct way to eat it is ideally toast. So you toast some bread and then you put on a thin layer of like butter or margarine in my case, and then you thinly layer on the Vegemite, and then you can have like with cheese or something else on it. Is quite a popular one. It's a very rich, savory taste. So I really like it a lot. I like to have toast with lunch. So I was missing that and got some sent from home. So I do have that. Thankfully, you don't eat very much, so a small supply can last a while. But that is one thing that's difficult to get here. But yeah, very quintessentially Australian food. But I wouldn't really recommend it if you haven't tried it before, because I don't think I've ever heard of anyone who liked it who hadn't also grown up with it. I think it's entirely an acquired taste. Yeah, there's a lot. It is a good source of a number of vitamins and minerals, though. So like it's good if you can stomach it, but I like it.
Yeah, I think the American, or I don't know the extent of it, but the American angle, and I think if you haven't heard of it, because I hadn't heard about it until recently, is most stores have it now, is nutritional yeast, which is I think a similar idea, but I think the preparation is very different. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it is. That was originally what it was marketed for, as a nutritional yeast product. And yeah, it's a strange it's a strange product if you're not familiar with it. But yeah, I've certainly missed that. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I had a few things there from baked beans is another one. I haven't been able to find good baked beans here. I don't know if that's just a regional thing, but Americans have it, but they put like sugar and meat and stuff in it, and that's not how it's prepared in Australia. It's just beans and tomato sauce. So I was kind of annoyed I couldn't find one that I liked.
Well, you could probably make
sugar in a lot of things. But you can, you can. It's not that difficult.
I'll send you a recipe after we're done. I think you'll be very happy with it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Well, I think that covers the human interest aspect that I was getting off to. I was actually very interesting. You're like, I don't think I can talk for very much, but I'm like, yeah, I think we got it. So where else can people find you, James?
Sure. So I have a podcast, a Science of Everything podcast. So you can just Google that if you're interested in my content there. I also have a YouTube channel. I talk more there about philosophy and religion. So just look up James Furter on YouTube. And if you're interested in supporting my work, you can go to my Patreon, James Furter Patreon. If you Google that, you'll be able to find me there.
Yeah. And the links are all in the show notes. And again, this guy does, you can tell just by the interview style, the whole podcast is like this. So thank you so much, James, for coming on the show.
No worries. Thanks very much for having me.
So first of all, Weer'd, I have had several Australian friends who have told me the correct pronunciation, and you did it correct the first time at least, Melbourne.
Yep.
And so the second thing has to do with, well, not Australia, but when I was living in Europe with my parents in the 80s, one of the places we went to was Great Britain, and we actually drove through France, and we got on a ferry that took us across the English Channel into Great Britain. Now, we were driving an American car, and so we had the left-hand drive when everyone was on the right-hand roads. And so what my father did, and I think it was the advice at the time, was he tied a handkerchief to the steering wheel on his right side, so that as he gripped the steering wheel, the handkerchief would be felt by his right hand, and that would be a constant reminder to him to pull right instead of drifting left. And so maybe doing the opposite would be, well, actually, what was his name again?
James.
I'm sorry. I almost called him Jeff. James, thank you. I started to say that's something James could do, but then I remembered he doesn't drive. Well, maybe he could put it on his bicycle handlebars or something. Anyway, I just thought it was a useful bit of trivia in case you ever find yourself in Australia, New Zealand, Great Britain, Ireland, or any other country that drives on the incorrect side of the road. I said what I said.
You said what you said. And it's the majority of countries do drive on the right side of the road, like Americans do. It's really places that used to be part of the British Empire and Japan. And so yeah, I haven't talked to James in a little bit. I said to him after the last big snowstorm, I sent him a recipe for English style beans so he could make his own. But it has been a brutal winter here in the north. I mean, really, it's been a brutal winter everywhere, but specifically in the Northeast. And so I've been thinking about him. We just got more snow this weekend, and none of the other stuff is melted. It hasn't been above freezing at all. And I think we're supposed to get more tomorrow, is what the news was saying. Ugh, I'm not even paying attention anymore. Yeah, and actually, one last story. Actually, I asked him after we had finished the interview, mostly because it seemed like it was kind of a bit of an out of left field question, and I didn't want to get him flat footed on such, but I wanted to ask anyway. It's a question I'd had specifically about Canadians, but Australians hold the same thing, in the fact that they both have a governor general, and they are both essentially governed by King Charles as their ruler. If you guys are an island that's governed by King Charles, why aren't you guys considered British, while the various British Isles are all considered British? And he actually had, it was the most succinct thing, and I can't believe I've never heard this before, but essentially that. And actually, if you look on like King Charles's Wikipedia page, it'll give his titles. And actually, hold on a second. Let me pull it up, and I'll just read them off. I think the Wikipedia has done a rearrangement since Queen Elizabeth. But I thought I remembered they had a nice little sidebar that just had all the various titles that they had. But essentially, they are both the king of the United Kingdom, but also the king of the Commonwealth realms. And so even though it's the same guy, it's still King Charles, and it was Queen Elizabeth before her death going through. It's a different job, very similar to how Elon Musk is the CEO of Tesla, Twitter /X, and SpaceX, but they're not all directly the same company. I just thought it was an interesting little factoid. Here it is. Here the regional regional style is Charles III, by grace of God, King of Antigua and Barbuda, and all that. And King Charles is King of Australia and his other realms and territories, head of the Commonwealth, et cetera, et cetera. Let's see. King Charles is the King of Canada. So these are all different titles within the and then again and he is the king and the head of the Commonwealth and the defender of the faith of the United Kingdom, which actually, interesting enough, the head of the faith, because he's the head of the Anglican Church, but I believe only in the UK. He's not head of the Anglican Church in Australia, or here we call it the Episcopal Church. So,
it is a figurehead status anyway. The functional head of the Anglican Church is the Archbishop of Canterbury, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, and as a general rule, King Charles is entirely, a figurehead anyway, because all these places all have parliaments and they do all the stuff. Yes, there's a governor general. Yes, they are technically the most powerful person in the country because the king can call them, and whatever the king says, they can make happen. And the same thing goes with, in the UK. He is still the supreme ruler of the United Kingdom, but I cannot recall a time, certainly within my lifetime, that a regent of the United Kingdom has actually done anything as far as creating laws or policy.
I mean, I want to say the last time that happened was during World War II.
Yeah, that would be a time for such a thing.
Mm-hmm. But Weer'd, do you know what time it is now?
11:30.
It's time to thank our listeners.
Our listeners! Yes, it is time to thank our listeners, each and every one of you. Thank you so much for listening. We appreciate you tuning into the Assorted Calibers podcast. But we must give, as always, a very special thanks to our supporters on Patreon. To our Patreon, go to patreon.com/Assorted Calibers podcast to sign up. Patrons get an early release of the podcast, plus there's bonus content like the ACB blooper reels, the ACB film tracks, and the ACB mag dump.
I don't think you said that our blooper reels were hilarious.
They are hilarious, and if you listen to them...
They are hilarious.
Hilarious.
Also, please remember to rate us on Apple Podcasts and Pocket Casts, subscribe to us on the platform of your choice, and share the show with your friends, both online and off.
I've got a blog. It's weirdworld.com. That's WEERDworld.com. And hear me weekly on Handgun Radio on the Firearms Radio Network.
And you can get more from me at linktree/Aaron Paulette. That's linktree.ee. Ooh, I was out of tune. /Aaron Paulette, all one word.
And thanks to Nate Spencer for our music.
Well, it's true, we both do have blogs, but I haven't updated mine for over a year, and these days Weer'd just uses it to host the podcast, and that's it. So our blog use is not only assorted, but rather shameful. And so is our podcast. Good night, everyone.
Good night.